Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is the first place award winner of the 2015 New Orleans Press Club's Excellence in Journalism Award for the category of Best TV Sports Show.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we're going to talk a lot about the New Orleans Saints and the LSU Tigers. And, of course, we have a great panel for you, as always. Sean Vazan of Fox 8 Sports joins us on the panel, along with Larry Holder, columnist for the Times-Picayune. He's a Saints columnist for the Times-Picayune. Ought to be a lively discussion. Guys, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us. As always like to start off letting the audience know a little bit about what's going on at your respective entities. And Sean, we'll start with you.
Well, not a whole lot if you consider 5 shows a week, sportscast every day. We have our Monday, which is one of our funnest shows to do, is the Jim Henderson Black and Gold Rewind. It's our Monday show with Juan Kincaid, myself, and Jim Henderson. Thursday night, a little bit later on tonight, our Game Plan show will air at 10:30 as well. Friday, Fox 8 Football Friday, our prep show, which will air at 10:30 on Friday. Playoffs start this week, by the way. I know you're happy for your Romo Raiders. But,
absolutely.
And then on Sunday, we have our 10 to 11 Fox 8 Live Tailgate, and then our 10:35, the final play, where we wrap everything up. So we have a full plate of coverage over at Fox 8.
Of course, we don't want to forget about the award-winning blog.
After further review on fox8live.com.
Larry, tell us a little bit about what's going on at TimesPicayune.com.
Well, Sean Fazan left out my weekly
yes.
awful appearances where I incorrectly picked every Saints game in humanity.
I refuse to pick any more, ever.
Every time I've been on the last 5 weeks, I've gotten the pick wrong. The one week I was not on TV, I actually picked the game
Indeed
right,
he did.
of course.
Indeed he did.
But no, of course, all Saints, all the time at NOLA.com and Times-Picayune. Of course, we're doing chats, video, you name it, and of course, and myself and my colleague Jeff Duncan, we do our weekly Dat Chat podcast, where it's live and interactive, and it's one of the cool things we do, and it's really kind of caught some steam, and it's really great to do, and of course, columns all the time for me.
Yes.
Again, spewing things that I know and spewing things that I don't know. This season, a bunch of things that I just don't know.
Because no one knows.
Right, exactly. Not even anyone on Airline Drive
Exactly,
knows.
no one knows, no doubt. Let's get it started. Again, Saints 4-5. They lose to the Titans in overtime, 34-28. And man, I tell you what, when you look back at the beginning of the season and you look at the schedule, the first thing you think is, you're checking off some wins. Everybody had Tennessee as a win. 1-win team, rookie quarterback, can't get close to him. Sean, you broke the tape down. What did you see?
I saw a game where the Saints should have won probably by 14, 17, 20 points. I feel like had they made that play, the unlucky break, whatever you want to call it, with the Jarrisburg, Keenan Lewis turned interception, turned touchdown, I think they would have won that game, because if they would have scored, it would have been 21-3. I think it would have been I don't think Tennessee could have came back from that. But you mentioned the rookie quarterback. To me, that is very concerning. The second rookie quarterback in this environment. Now, this rookie quarterback was his first game back with a new head coach, 1-6 team, and one of the most hostile environments in the NFL. And he got red hot in the fourth quarter. That's a problem. And I think it just speaks to the fact that when this team starts off slow, like they did this season, it's just, for whatever reason, they just cannot get over the hump. And I just have a feeling it's going to be like this the rest of the season, kind of hovering around this 500 mark, and we'll see how they finish up.
Larry, what can you add?
Well, I feel like the Saints' offense against the Titans really was an extension of what they saw against the Giants, and yet this offense simply is not good enough to sustain this every week. We've only seen this happen once, and it was against the Giants, and they needed 52 points to get a win. Saints' offense isn't good enough as a whole to sustain, and especially when you got to score 35 points to win, that's not going to happen. And defensively, I do think, and I wrote a column about this earlier this week, I think the injuries to Kikaha and Ellerby, they have no substitutes for those guys, and it completely changes what you do in your front seven. And look, the defense is bad. We know that. Even when they're there, they're not great, but they're at least viable. And you're just going to keep seeing the same thing over and over again, just because this isn't the offense of 2011 where you could put up 40 points a game, and the defense just isn't good enough. And so They're going to kick themselves for losing to Tampa. They're going to kick themselves for losing to Tennessee. And it just leaves the rest of the season open to where you can make an argument for them to win a game and you can make an argument for them to lose a game.
I think maybe the more troubling thing watching the game and then going back and watching it again was Saints were kind of running on all cylinders on the offensive side of the ball, especially in the first half. Obviously, they had some bad breaks, but it seemed that Tennessee adjusted in the second half. It seemed the Saints didn't, and that's kind of mind-boggling because, again, whether it's Peyton or Ryan, they've had a reputation of being able to adjust on the fly. Didn't seem like they did that on Sunday.
Yeah, the second half of that game, Tennessee really, for whatever reason, sort of figured it out, and you can tell as they were able to hang around longer and longer and longer, a young quarterback got more confident. A defense all of a sudden started to feel like they can start making plays on the Saints offense because on the opposite side of the ball, the defense wasn't stopping anyone. So I think it's a testament to when you have a chance to beat a team, particularly one that's not as good as you, which Tennessee is not as good as the Saints, you have to put them away because in the NFL, anything can happen, including if you have a rookie quarterback playing at home, it can still happen. Look, I agree with Larry. They're going to kick themselves for losing to Tampa Bay, kick themselves for losing to Tennessee, and I think that's the reason why I just cannot fully jump on board with this team. I was ready to if they would have won last week, but they couldn't do it.
Yeah. Larry, what can you add about the adjustments or
Well,
lack thereof?
here's what happened. The offense kind of started flailing late in the first half. Their last significant drive of the first half, they go 3 and out, and this is after they're rolling. And then you open up the third quarter, 3 and out again, and without a significant pass rush, Mariota certainly got more comfortable. And look, I don't think anyone breathed on the guy. I think I do recall when, and it was in my film study, where Stephon Anthony came in on a blitz and completely hammered Mariota, and yet he was able to unload the football, got it to Dorial Green-Beckham, and you could just see it, his confidence growing. And honestly, you could probably see the play calling on Tennessee. Oh, look, we can get these guys. And they certainly did. And it's just something to where you've seen it, you thought it was cured, it's not cured, and now you go forward and you're wondering what's next because you don't know what's next. And that's the thing. If they would have got over the hump, we probably would have been talking about, wow, they're going to win in Washington.
Right.
Wow, they're going to win in Houston. Maybe they're 7-4 and moving forward. Well, guess what? No, they're completely vulnerable still. They're still the same team we thought they were, even though they won 3 games in a row.
But you wrote about it this week, and I talked about it as well. Not having Ellerbe, not having Kakaha changes the whole complexion of that defense.
Absolutely. And yet the thing is, with Ellerbe, yes, he's great when he's on the field, but the problem is he's had a litany of injuries, and that's what you're dealing with this guy. But it also stems to, boy, you have done a bad job of figuring out who's going to be your weak side linebacker, who's going to be able to defend against a tight end, a running back coming out of the backfield. And look, when Delaney Walker, who is a solid tight end, and then you got Anthony Fasano, and then you got a guy named Craig Stevens, who's no one's heard of, and he catches a ball, falls down, gets up, runs another 18 yards in overtime. You can't defend any tight ends, you're in trouble. And as far as Kikaha, it changes the whole complexity of the defensive line. You have to play John Jenkins more. You have to play Bobby Richardson more. You have to play Kevin Williams more. And even though they were pretty solid up front, but in rushing downs, they're not there for pass rushing situations.
Sean, what can you add about the linebacker position and how it has been a ripple effect that has affected the entire team?
I think, look, how long we've been saying about their inability to cover tight ends. I mean, it's really been all season long, and obviously Donnell Ellerbe helps in that regard. But you guys said it. If he's not available, he's not available. Even the games he's played, I feel like he's had to miss significant snaps in those games because of an injury. So hopefully he can return. That'll help. In regards to Kikaha, he's not the greatest guy in coverage, but as Larry mentioned, when he drops down to rush the passer, and you can all of a sudden slide Cam Jordan inside, which I believe is where he's very effective along the inside. You can go NASCAR, you can do certain things. Not having him changes that whole dynamic up front, and you really saw that kind of manifest itself against Tennessee because that was a beat-up offensive line they couldn't take advantage of, but B, Marcus Mariota was getting the ball out quick. You mentioned that Stephon Anthony throw. The ball came out. That might have been the best play of the game for Marcus Mariota. So I just think the linebacking position when they're not available, it certainly does have a ripple effect on this defense.
Well, and look, as you guys both have mentioned, we've seen it all season long. Again, whether it's confusion at the point of attack, not knowing who you need to take, and tight ends running open, as we saw in the last play of overtime, to again just being with the tight end and not being able to cover them, it's mind-boggling. And then now being in a situation where you have to go to the waiver wire at mid-season and take cast off to try to get in to fill the position.
And it's kind of the name of the game, right? You have to deal with injuries. Every team has to deal with them. But for whatever reason, this week, it was a storyline going in. You read off the list. It was about 9 guys maybe? I don't know what it was, 5 guys? I don't know what it was. But you just saw 3 linebackers out, and you think, wow, that is a lot for one position. And when you talk about the cast-offs, that is a byproduct, Larry, of, again, bad drafts in the past, and with the 20% of dead money that you got out there, and really the lack of quality depth on the team right now.
Yeah, and when you're having to go pick up Jolon Dunbar, who he hadn't been in the team in the 4 years, and even Greg Williams, who was so enamored with Jolon Dunbar, he's even saying, I'm good, time to move on. But you mentioned it, and let's just go back. They never drafted linebackers really that high, and when they did, they struck out. Let's talk Martez Wilson. Let's talk Kyrie Ford. They're drafting these guys, and they struck out. They finally got at least 2 guys in the draft. And the thing is, the Saints need immediate impact now, and those guys are rookies. Sometimes you're going to have some growing pains, and with Kikaha, unfortunately, right now, you got an injury, and now you're having to deal with Donnell Ellerbe, who, when he's on the field, he's a good player, but he is injury-laden. And now you're having to go back to the same old guys who never got the job done. And those guys are hurt. Hawthorne's hurt. Humber's hurt. And you haven't had Michael Marty, who should be just on special teams.
Agreed.
And he was okay in the last game, but he's not the guy you want on the field. If he's on the field, you're probably in trouble.
Sean, you mentioned Cam Jordan and how he really has upped his game when he was in the NASCAR package. 2 tackles last week. I mean, non-existent. They didn't get near Mariota. And it's concerning when again, the guy they're talking about Pro Bowl and Pro Football Focus is talking about one of the best defensive ends in football, when he comes up with 2 tackles. Meanwhile, Jenkins gets 10 tackles.
That was a stat I didn't expect.
That just jumped out, man. Like, what? Jenkins got 10 tackles? Are you kidding me?
Well, he's up and down, right? Cam Jordan, it's kind of been that way. Now, I know Tennessee, from a film standpoint, stayed in a lot of base, probably more than most teams against the Saints. But that was an offensive line that was moved around, shifted around. Zach Mettenberg, and I know it's a difference in mobility, but it wasn't like Mariota was killing you running the ball. Was sacked 7 times against Houston, hit another 7 times. I mean, they benched their tackle during the game for the 2nd time this season. So that is concerning. That is your big money player, and at times he's flashed and looked fantastic, outstanding. But other times he kind of disappears, and I think that happened on Sunday.
Larry?
I think Cam Jordan needs a running mate. When he does not have a running mate, he's in trouble, because teams will key in on him and they do not have an effective other side of the football, and that's Haley Kikaha.
Right.
We've seen him be that effective guy, and when they are going in nickel defense, typically, Cam Jordan moves inside. He's able to take advantage of a guard. Edebali's on the outside, Kikaha's on the outside, and they're able to even use some blitzing. You can't do that when you don't have a running mate. And so I think that's one of the biggest things. Look, do I think Cam Jordan has had a very good season? Yes. But he absolutely needs a running mate. Without that, teams can key on him, and no one else, if Kikaha's not in there, can be effective.
The whipping boy of the fans, and rightly so, is Brandon Browner. The blow-up in the locker room with Lions yelling, obviously unacceptable. What he's been doing on the field, where he commits a foul every time he's literally every play. Now, it's not getting called every play, but every play. I mentioned on the radio show over the last couple of days, knowing Sean Payton's MO, he has little tolerance for that in the past. But yet, he's not sitting. There's no. I understand they're still a little bit injured back there. Larry, in your opinion, what happens with Brandon Browner going forward?
Well, he's going to keep playing this year. I mean, that's what it is. Keenan Lewis is not 100% healthy, so you can't take him off the field. You're not putting Brian Dixon in there. Damian Swan is not healthy.
Yes.
So he is there. And plus, they have enough guaranteed money there that they have to play him, and they got to pay him. And it's kind of where they were in free agency. It goes back to there. You're having cornerbacks fly off the board, huge money. And so the Saints had to kind of bargain hunt. There's a reason why Brandon Browner was, I'm going to say only, $5 million a year on average, and he was one of the lower corners. That's the guy you have to get. And they're paying for it. And so they're lucky that Delvin Breaux's actually been pretty good.
Yes.
Without him, they'd be in major trouble. But yeah, I think the Saints have to put up with what's going on with Brandon Browner. Now, there are some things that he does behind the scenes that the Saints absolutely value. Say, for instance, he's sitting there with Breaux and he's watching film with him and showing him the ins and outs. It's not like Brandon Browner doesn't know what's going on. He's just physically incapable of making it happen because of his technique, because of his size, because of his age. But he knows what's going on, so he's a help there, and yet the Saints have to put up with him. And look, they're low. They have a low tally as far as third down defense. It looks good on paper, but Brandon Browner on penalties has given up 14 first downs. You can't have that.
It's amazing. It really, really can. And Sean, I had Coach Rick Gailey on this show, on my radio show last week. I had Chris Landry, NFL scout, on the show as well. And both guys said the Saints are using him incorrectly. That, again, the way he was utilized in New England, the way he was utilized in Seattle is not the way the Saints are utilizing him now.
Well, not really knowing how they used him in New England and Seattle, I know this. He's not – there were a couple plays, it was a couple games ago, maybe it was Indianapolis, where I jotted a note down saying he's not jamming at the line as much as I thought he would be. I mean, literally chucking a guy at the line of scrimmage. And here's the thing with those penalties. It's not like you can look at him and say, oh, that's ticky-tack. Every one of them seem to be obvious. It's not like the referees are calling something that's egregious. And now he's got a reputation. I know there was a big storyline, a big line of questioning throughout the locker room last week. Certain guys have certain reputations. There is no doubt in my mind that when he drops back and he's in coverage and there's anything close, the flag is coming out. And here's my issue with Brandon Browner is, you know, Legion of Boom, for instance. They led the league in penalties a year ago. But the Legion of Boom is Legion of Boom. How many great plays do you get out of Legion of Boom?
Right.
We haven't seen the great plays out of Brandon Browner, short of that one interception. So at some point, you're going to cost your team first downs, points, wins and losses. And you mentioned Sean Payton. He's got a short fuse when it comes to this sort of thing. It's with certain players. It's not with everyone. Clearly, he respects Brandon Browner for what he brings, but at some point you have to add it up and say, is the risk here worth the reward? And right now they're not getting the reward.
Right. Larry, what do you see on a Jairus Byrd? You know, I've commented on the radio show and on this show as well that I don't think he has the range that he had in Buffalo. He seems to be just, I mean, as Sean and I were talking before the show, a half a step slow in getting where he needs to get to defend the pass.
It's funny because I've heard players answer questions about what Jairus Byrd brings, and they're not giving real good concrete answers because I think they know. He's not bringing that much, and I think you're right. I don't think he's the same guy, and it's not for him. I don't think he's loafing.
No,
I don't think so. And even going back to his injury, I think there was a snafu there, and he had to get it corrected again, and that wasn't on him, even though some people might say it was. And yet, he's just not the same guy. And the Saints, again, have to live with that. That's who they have.
$9 million a year.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And trust me, Mickey Loomis knows.
Oh, yeah, they know.
And so he is not exactly this big, rangy playmaker that he was, and they're stuck with him.
Right.
Another guy, another bad contract to where they thought they were one player away, and it turns out they overestimated what they had, and they are multiple players away, and they're now in this rebuilding mode on defense. And look, at some point, Jairus Byrd's going to be out. He's not going to be part of the rebuild. It's probably not going to be next year. He's going to have to play again, but he's not the guy that you saw in Buffalo.
No, I agree.
Look, I mean, I just think we're on the downside of a player's career. I mean, was he 28, 29 years old? Had some injury issues, not just here. Had injury issues in Buffalo as well. You talk about back issues. There was knee issues. You just wonder if it's all taking its toll at a position where you have to be athletic, you have to be fast, you have to be quick, you have to be instinctive. I feel like Jairus Byrd knows what to do on every play, but for whatever reason, as you mentioned, like the mental clock is just a half a second off. He seems like he's everywhere on the field. He's just not there in time for the ball, if that makes any sense. So I just think right now you have a player right now who is making $9 million a year, as you said, so they're stuck with him. But maybe, just maybe, he's reached the downside of his career and he's a descending player.
Larry, a couple weeks ago, we were looking at this defense when they were probably at the most full strength they've been all season long, and they looked pretty decent. Fool's gold?
Well, when they're fully intact, I don't think it is fool's gold. I think when you have all of your starters intact, and here's the thing, we've still never seen Keenan Lewis as a starter. Right. You would assume he would be starting over Brandon Browner, and then Browner would probably be playing about 60% of the snaps because they play so much nickel in the NFL now. But when you are completely healthy, and it goes down to, I'm not saying Donnell Ellerbe is the key to gold, but he's your starter. When he starts or plays significant snaps, they're 3-1. It helps alleviate some of the problems in the middle and then tight ends. But when they're not, they're not. And especially last week, if you have an injury to a key guy like a Kikaha, they can't overcome it. They're just not good enough. And I don't know. I think it goes back to a couple of years of bad evaluation, bad free agency, bad salary cap. All of it is now caught up to them, and they're kind of having to play with the hand that they either have gotten themselves or B, that they can only go after because free agency has kind of handcuffed them so much they can only go after certain caliber of players.
Same question,
I
Sean.
think it starts up front, okay? When you have Kikai, as we mentioned earlier, it was a great point, the running mate, if you will. When you have an ability to sustain a pass rush that is, I've always said, get it up to a middle of the pack, decent pass rush. And not to be elite, I don't think you have elite pass rushers on this team. Helps everything else out. And you saw that in that win streak against Indianapolis. You saw it against Atlanta. So you saw that in that win streak. And when they are able to effectively rush the passer, excuse me, I think it helps everything else behind them. And when they are not able to do that, when they are a pass rush that doesn't touch the quarterback like we saw Sunday, you have what you had. Now, sometimes there's exceptions because against the Giants, against the Giants, Drew Brees was playing out of his mind. They were able to score 52 points. But as Larry said, you can't sustain that week in and week out. So when they are not able to effectively get after the passer, at least at a decent level, the whole thing really falls apart, and they look like the 31st ranked defense in the NFL.
Also, when they're healthy, they're more apt to blitz because they feel better about their back end. They feel better about what's going on underneath with the linebackers. You'll see Vaccaro blitz more. You'll see Stephon Anthony blitz. You'll see other guys blitz. When they're feeling good about what they've got there, they're more apt to do that. When they don't, they can't afford to do it and because they don't have the personnel to do it, and we've seen the results.
A lot of chatter on the internet. Rob Ryan. To me, you got to have players to be able to coach, to be able to be successful. Any thought about, first of all, how Ryan has coached this team? And do you expect at some point, if the defense continues to play as it is, that maybe there's a mid-season move and Dennis Allen moves into the defensive coordinator position?
I've been asked that a lot. Let's not completely absolve Rob Ryan. I think he's certainly made some mistakes, but he has dealt with some injuries. It certainly feels like that marriage is coming to an end at some point. It's just a matter of, is it at the end of the season or now? Let's just say Kirk Cousins lights him up. Kirk Cousins. Then I could see maybe with the bye week coming, maybe you make that move. And the infrastructure of the defensive staff is kind of an odd one to begin with the presence of Joe Vitt, the presence of Dennis Allen, who is a senior defensive assistant who doesn't really have a specific title. Certainly seems like he's there waiting. So I could certainly see that, but it's never really been Peyton's deal to fire a coach mid-season. So I can understand if he has some reservations about that.
Well, Rob Ryan's fired. Well, let me take that back. He doesn't have to be fired.
Right.
His contract's going to expire. Rob Ryan's gone after the season. There's no question about it. But do you think, if you're Sean Payton, that this is going to ignite something? And here's another curveball to this, and it's me just kind of thinking out loud here. If Sean Payton is really serious about staying with the Saints, you'd think he would fire Rob Ryan and keep Dennis Allen and have him coach this part of the season and get him used to what he's got going into next season. If he's resigned to leaving, why not keep Rob Ryan around? Everyone cleans house. He puts his hands in the air and says, look, guys, I want to go coach Andrew Luck. I mean, that's just me thinking out loud. I don't know. I don't have anything concrete, but it's certainly something to think about. And yet, look, Rob Ryan, let's be honest. When has he ever been successful as a defensive coordinator? I don't care the personnel. I don't care anything. He's had multiple shots. He's been in Oakland, Cleveland, Dallas. They've had, a top 10 defense twice. One was in Oakland, and that year they were terrible, and it was when he was with the Saints, and they were able to be pretty good. But still, I think it all comes down to maybe what I just mentioned, my little philosophy.
Well, I'm going to jump on
theory.
that. And we've gotten more splash reports this week. Yahoo talking about that the Saints may allow Peyton to walk without compensation. Ian Rappaport on Sunday with multiple reports talking about, that Peyton wouldn't be here at the end of the year. I've said it before on both shows. I do not believe that, again, the Tom Benson will allow Sean Payton to walk without compensation. Sean, do you buy into the splash reports? Do you see Sean Payton, if he is to leave at the end of the season, if they give him a release, not getting some type of compensation?
See, first off, I couldn't imagine if the Saints weren't, entitled to some form of compensation. Why wouldn't they get something in form of a draft pick? That hurts no one, so why not? So I don't see that. And I was curious to see that portion of the report. But, look, the way these reports are structured, the way it's coming out, it's not hard to figure out, or the process of elimination as far as what camp it's coming from. So clearly there's issues. Now, you're hearing a lot of stuff about the out clauses now, the out clauses. Clearly there's some reservations about ownership from the Peyton camp for it to be out, because we've known about the out clauses now for a while. We've known about it for a while. So my theory is this: if they don't make the playoffs this year, I think he's out. If they do, I think he sticks around. But my bigger thing here, my biggest issue, and I blogged about it today, is the nonchalant reaction from the fan base. It's almost as if, okay, if he's gone, great. If he's not, that's great too. It's almost like this. The invincibility factor is not there anymore with Sean Payton.
He no longer walks on water.
Exactly. It almost feels like, for instance, after the game, no follow-up press conference, no follow-up question after the game, the press conference. I think there was one Monday, but it was kind of in passing towards the end. But it was one of those things, A, we know the drill now, and B, maybe that is the end of the road. And I think everyone in New Orleans, in this city, is kind of seeing if it is, so be it.
Larry?
I think Sean Payton and, say, Saints fans and everyone within the organization, they understand what a great run they had with him. Won a Super Bowl, even in 2011. That was their best team, and unfortunately, they never went the whole way. And Sean Payton and Drew Brees helped them dig themselves out of A, PR crisis, B, a franchise crisis, got them through 10 years in, and I think as far as the franchise, there's no way on planet Earth they're going to let Sean out of his contract without compensation if another team wants to go after him. There's no chance, and there's no chance the Saints are firing him. There's no chance. I don't care if they lose every game the rest of the season. They're not firing him. But as far as Sean, I feel like it's more of a Chris Paul situation to where I can understand the reservations with ownership. And Chris Paul behind the scenes worked his way out.
Yes, he did.
Sean Payton could easily be doing the same thing. And but I kind of understand where the fans are coming from with what you're saying. Look, they've given so much. Maybe it's time for some fresh blood. You knew it's going to happen at some point. But I agree with you, Sean, as well. It is totally down to the season. If the Saints, I don't even think they have to make the playoffs. If they go 9-7, get good, defense gets better, offense is good, and Drew Brees is looking sharp. Sean Payton's like, boy, Drew's got one more year in his contract. Let's give it one more run, see what we can do. This team will be better. These young guys can be better. It is critical this year to see whether Sean Payton is in or he's out.
And if you're Sean Payton, just jump in real quick, and he's able to maneuver his way out and get the Indianapolis job. Second head coaching job, another franchise quarterback in your prime to walk right into. Another great situation for him. So I think it'll be an interesting offseason, that's for sure, as it usually is with this regime.
There's no doubt. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports each and every Thursday night right here on WLE with our live broadcast at 6 p.m. Every Friday night you can catch us on Pelican Sports Television at the New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette markets at 9 p.m. and also back here on WLEE at 10 p.m. as well. Got a great panel for you tonight. Sean Fazan of Fox 8 Sports, Larry Holder of NOLA.com, and the Times-Picayune. We'll be going to the phone lines when we get back. 866-3200. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Don't move.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbeesrestaurant.com. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile. WLAE is currently looking for partners to underwrite this program and other programs on our station. Underwriting on WLAE is affordable, brings exposure to your cause or company, and helps support our nonprofit mission of providing television programs that educate, inform, and inspire the viewers of Greater New Orleans and Southeast Louisiana. If you are interested in learning about program underwriting on WLAE, please contact us at 504-830-3703.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Larry Holder of NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. He's the Saints columnist. And the guy that breaks it down for Fox 8, again, Sean Fazan, are with us. 866-3200. Phone lines are open if you'd like to get involved in the show. Guys, let's switch to the offensive side of the ball. And the big question mark, Larry, we'll go with you first. C.J. Spiller. Last week, 2 touches for Spiller last week? Maybe 3 at the outside? Previously, he was getting, maybe 6 touches, 7 touches at the most. They have not figured out how to utilize this guy.
I think actually they have, and it doesn't fit what's going on. I think the Saints feel like the only way to really get C.J. Spiller involved is kind of being a straight line guy. I feel like they don't think he is a Reggie Bush. They don't feel like he's a Darren Sproles. And he's certainly not one of their best options as far as pass protection. Mark Ingram is, and Drew Brees even said it on Wednesday, he is their main number 1 running back, and it's not running back by committee anymore. Right. It's Mark Ingram and whoever else is behind there. And so, but yet C.J. Spiller is getting 6 snaps last week. Mark Ingram's getting 66, and they're both getting paid just about the same per year. I understand why fans are clamoring, and yet Spiller is just not as effective. I'm just saying, as within the Saints, their mindset, they don't feel like he's an effective piece of the puzzle.
It's amazing because we both heard the same thing as Drew Brees. If you're around Drew Brees, you know when he's saying something without really saying it. He basically said, Mark Ingram is our number 1 back. He's an all-around back. He's a complete back. Now, he was asked a question about Spiller in that regard, and that was the answer he gave. So that leads me to believe there's something on Spiller's end that's not quite working. I watched that the touchdown throw against the Giants. That was the Darren Sproles route. It's the option route where you come out the backfield, you read the linebacker, either go left or you go right, and Drew and Darren were on such great chemistry in that regard. If you watch, the play worked out great, but if you watch the route, it was not run the same way Darren Sproles run. It's just, so I'm wondering if there's a realization amongst the coaching staff that maybe his skill set that we thought we had doesn't exactly match what we saw up close and personal, and that's why his snap count's going down. But even still, you would think, given the man crush that Sean Payton had on this offseason, that 6 snaps. That seems really low.
And one of the few players that, again, can take it to the house with one catch or a run. He gets a little bit of an opening. He's gone. And again, the offense has kind of come around a bit, but they still lack that guy that could come in and just change a play, or with just one step.
Well, here's my suggestion: replace Marcus Murphy and put Spiller there. Because Spiller return a kickoff return for a touchdown last year. If you want to insert him and try to get something going, that's someone you might trust more than Murphy. I mean, Murphy basically started the Tennessee momentum last week, and nearly killed off the Giants win. Thank goodness for Willie Snead, or they could lose that game. But you got to get him in there somehow. I mean, you're paying this guy $4 million a year. You've got to get him in there somehow, whether it's in the offense, whether it's special teams. But he's not the same route runner as Sean mentioned, and it's bizarre because where else do you put him? Yeah. They trust Mark Ingram more running the football. Honestly, I trust Mark Ingram more running the football within this offense. So this is going to come down to another bad signing.
Right. Well, you know, and look, Ingram has grown. He was an impatient runner. He was a guy that again really couldn't catch the ball out the backfield as effective as some of the other players they had, and he has become an all-around back.
He has, and he looks quicker. It was funny. I was actually talking to a couple of guys around him. He actually, and I think I might have brought this up on your show before. He actually stopped taping up his cleats.
Right,
and it helped him with his toe issue because it'll relieve the pressure off his toe. But that's just a little inside. But he was the guy that he's clearly grown on the mental side of the game as well, and he picks up pass protection now very well. There were a few plays where they came off the corner in a Tennessee game, and he was there to make a block. So I think he is a more complete back, and I think the Saints trust him. That's what it boils down to.
Let me just put it to you this way. Mark Ingram is 4th in the NFL in yards from scrimmage. The only people ahead of him are Devontae Freeman, Julio Jones, and DeAndre Hopkins. He's 3rd in first downs picked up. Only Freeman and Hopkins are ahead of him. I think that tells you how valuable the Saints feel he is and how much they want to have him on the field. And his value blocking in blitz protection is gigantic.
Yes.
I mean, gigantic. No one else on this team can do that. And it took Ingram a while to get that because he couldn't do that, and Pierre Thomas had to do that before him.
No doubt. To the phone lines we go. 866-3200. Larry Holder, Sean Pazan are our guest. Let's head to the phone lines. Mike is in Metairie. Mike, thanks for calling tonight on Inside New Orleans Sports.
Good evening, gents. Real quick. Inevitably, Sean Payton will leave. Whether it's soon or later, who would each one of you guys like to see replace him? Now listen on the TV. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
Ooh, we had this debate in the Fox 8 Sports office the other day.
I've never thought about this, honestly.
And I have not either, honestly. But
well, if you had the debate, Sean,
go ahead.
Why don't you lead it off?
We never really could figure out a name. It was crazy because we were trying to figure out, do we want an established head coach? Do we want a rising coordinator like Sean Payton was? You know what name we came up with, and people may laugh, was the coordinator for New England who coached Denver. What's his name? Josh
McDaniels.
Josh McDaniels. I know he wasn't terrible in Denver. He was only there 3 years. That was the name we were talking about, but that was just really. I mean, that wasn't someone we were all in love with. But that was the name we came up with. You know, there's always John Gruden out there, the Bill Cowher type out there. I think Juan even mentioned Tony Dungy, which I don't know if he can come out of retirement at that point, but. It's funny, but at some point you're going to have to start recycling names here because it could very well happen.
Here's a caveat to that. What about salary? Sean Payton, highest paid head coach. When you look at the next time around, will that be a factor here? Maybe not wanting to pay a lot of money for a head coach this time around?
Well, Sean Payton didn't start that high.
No,
so
I know.
You don't start initially that high.
Yeah,
but let's be honest, that was 10 years ago, and so the price for a head coach has gone up. As you were talking, someone who just popped in my head, offensive guy, and he got it right with the defensive coordinator finally, Kevin Sumlin, Texas A&M. Okay. You get the right defensive coordinator, the right offensive mind with him. I mean, we're talking. Who knows? I have no name. We're talking hypotheticals, but that's the name that popped up in my head. Yeah. Would that be enough? And yet, here's the thing. If a coach is going to come in, he's not starting off with Drew Brees.
Right.
He might be starting off with the end of Drew Brees, but he's probably not going to start off with someone like Drew Brees. So I don't know. I don't know if I envy that position to make that next call.
No doubt about it. I don't know if I trust Mickey Loomis to make that call personally.
But he got it right last time.
But he did. I'll give it that. Greg is in Houma. Greg, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Greg.
Yeah, I got a question. I need your opinion on your panel. I can't for the life of me figure out the difference between Sean Payton and Bill Belichick. Why does Bill Belichick can coach a team with no names and still make it, and yet Sean Payton can't? And I'll listen to your panel's advice.
Larry, why don't you take it first?
Well, I could say, A, Sean Payton's an offensive coach. B, Bill Belichick is a defensive coach. I think maybe that could be your starter. And yet, I think personality-wise, I think Belichick and Payton are pretty different. I mean, we could say Sean Payton is certainly brash. Bill Belichick does not come off as brash. And once you get a winning program, and let's be honest, when you've got Tom Brady, you're doing pretty well for yourself. I think that's what's helped Sean Payton through the years as well, you having a good quarterback. But Tom Brady's better. And you've had, personnel-wise, I think they've been better off in the GM department. They've been better off in the scouting department. That's why you've seen so many. Look, let's be honest. Let's go back to Charlie Weiss and Romeo Crennel. Both of those coordinators moved on to head coaching jobs at some point. We've never seen that out of Sean Payton's crew. And then we've seen some of the under the GM up in New England. We've seen those guys move on. We've only seen one person really do that with Ryan Pace. And so I think overall, the whole structure of the thing helps, maybe not just Belichick versus Payton, but I just think Belichick, I think people buy into what he's doing a little more now than ever than what with Sean Payton.
There are two things that jump out to me with Bill Belichick. A, he's played, New England Patriots play in the AFC East, weaker division, NFC South, over the last, 14, 15 years as a whole. I think that helps. When you can dominate your division, you can dominate a lot of games. But B, what I've always been just fascinated with Bill Belichick is over those years he's had different identities to each team. His ability to constantly recreate himself. Yes. He doesn't have to win a certain way. Now, let's not just discount what Payton has done here. I mean, this is a long run of success here, okay? And Belichick is the ultra exception. I mean, even Payton's an exception because this is year number 10, obviously. But his ability to constantly recreate and evolve. Some years he can have the 28th ranked defense. Other years it's the 4th ranked defense. Other years it's the top ranked offense. Some years they're running the ball. Some years they're throwing the ball. And it's almost like week to week they are able to change that chameleon effect where they're changing their style to tailor to the opponent they're playing. And I think in Sean Payton's case, there's a little bit more stubbornness, wanting to win a certain way, and I think there's some strange loyalties, I think, with Payton that I don't think Belichick has. So that all those factors kind of add in, and I think that's a big difference.
And Belichick overcomes gate scandals far better than Sean Payton does, and maybe gets away with them a little better. So there you go.
You're right. I will add two things. Number one, from a personnel standpoint, I think he's head and shoulders. The ability, first of all, to realize, again, how to utilize the draft. Stockpile draft choices, giving in a lot of cases, trading away higher draft choices. And then just that uncanny ability of knowing when a guy maybe is just a little bit over the hill and maybe getting rid of that guy maybe 1 or 2 seasons before he really bottoms out. He's been a master at that.
Yes.
A la Brandon Browner.
There you go. There you go. No doubt about it.
Oh, that one stung.
That really did
that
sting.
one really stung.
I know that stung. Thomas and Metairie. Hey, Tom, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports.
Hey, guys. I guess I'll switch gears a little bit and talk about LSU.
Absolutely.
I have two questions for you. The game of the century, and again this year, Les Miles comes with the same game plan. It looks like both years Saban changed their game plan to confuse LSU, both years. And then my second question is, it looks like they huddle up, LSU does an offense, get to the line, and they still look to the sideline. This is not a spread offense. I don't understand why they go to the huddle, get a play, go to the sideline. I don't think they're changing the play. But if you could answer on that, and maybe a third question, if you don't mind, what do you see for the next 3 games you think they can win out?
You got it, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sean?
I think you can answer both those questions with the lack of trust in your quarterback, right? Both game plans in both games.
Right, sure.
And the fact that you huddle up, you call a long play, you get to the line of scrimmage, and they still look to the side, right? They still look to the side for basically the checks from the coaches on the sideline. So I think that's the main thing right there. Les Miles, for whatever reason, has a hard time trusting his quarterback. He does not trust Brandon Harris right now. I mean, you saw that game plan. The second he threw the interception, it was done.
Yeah, they put it in the deep
It was
freeze.
done. It happened in Game of the Century as well with Jarrett Lee. So
Agreed.
That's where it all boils down to. And to think that you can do the exact same thing every single time against Alabama and have a different result is pretty much insanity, right? So the fact that he was running out of the 22 personnel, I formation, 2 tight ends, inside his own 10, down 20 with 6 minutes left is mind-boggling to me. But you know what? So predictable.
Yeah.
It's so Les Miles.
Can you add, Larry?
That they have done this for years and years and years and years. And it's not just against Alabama. No. They just are better than every other team and are able to get away with it. I think that the fact that they feel like, boy, it's almost like, I don't want to say stubbornness, because I just feel maybe sometimes Les and his crew can be just a little more aloof to the fact that they can't get it done. But maybe there is some stubbornness that they think, boy, we're going to do it against you, Nick Saban. We're not, hey, just because we got stopped 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times the past 5 years, we're going to do it again. And yet, here's the thing. Leonard Fournette is the best player in college football. Ride with what got you there.
Yes.
I would have really liked to have seen them start it up, spread it out, open it up. And I don't care if you make a mistake. At least let them know that you're able or even willing to spread it out. And I thought that even when they had Mettenberger with someone who was capable of slinging a football, they didn't do that then either. And so I just think they're aloof or they're just stubborn, or I'm not going to go any further because the adjectives are going to be more condescending.
Well, and look, it's frustrating because I think everybody went into this game figuring, okay, look, and this was early in the season, that Alabama was going to do everything they could to stop Leonard Fournette. Every other team tried, again, had a spy everywhere Fournette went. The team was going with Fournette. You knew that. My gosh. Have a plan B. Have a plan B. You know, you've got some pretty darn good receivers on the outside. Let the kid throw the football. Get the kid on the edge. Let Harris run the ball. Harris is an instant first down. Now, maybe he's not an instant first down against that Alabama defense, but at least at that point it loosens things up, and they didn't do it. As far as the huddle, I'm with the caller. You know, it's one thing to have that type of a huddle, but it's another thing to watch that clock go red, okay? And you know you've got to call a timeout because the play is either not in or they haven't figured it out yet, and that's frustrating. As far as the last 3 games, I think a lot of it depends on this week. I think if they beat Arkansas, they got a chance to run the table. If they don't beat Arkansas, again, and have that hangover from Alabama, I think it could be tough down the stretch. I think they're capable of beating these teams, but ultimately I think it's the mindset that they go into this game.
Yeah, because Arkansas, like Alabama, kind of has a similar kind of a matchup in terms of, I think they match up fairly well with LSU, as we saw last year when they blanked them 27-0. I think LSU is going to bounce back this week. I really do. But it is funny, just to kind of go back to what we were talking about earlier, Les Miles has the stones to go for a fake field goal, to go for 4th down 5 times, but a forward pass. Right. It just, for whatever reason, he just tightens up, and he doesn't trust his quarterback to make those type of plays. And I can only imagine what it's like to work in Baton Rouge this week, because it is the same old story. A radio show in Baton Rouge this week must be just inundated with callers about the same old complaint with Les Miles. And like, I'll give him this: at least he's consistent. You know what you're going to get.
Yeah, well, Nick Saban knows what he's going to get. I got it all week long this week. Will Les Miles ever beat Nick Saban again?
The fact that I'm hesitating means I'm not sure he will, but I think they will. I think he will.
Look, next year at home. How about that? All those players will be juniors. Their final year.
Maybe so.
How about that?
Maybe they somehow figure out that throwing the football might work, and that spread offense.
You mean that it's 2015?
That spread offenses sometimes actually in college football win games. Yes. Maybe. I don't know.
Let's head to the phone lines, and we're going to try to get everybody in before the end of the show. Daphne is in New Orleans. Daphne, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports.
How y'all doing tonight?
Hey, Daphne, how are you?
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
First question, will Ryan be back in New Orleans? The second question is, the quarterback, I can't think of his name, the Saints drafted, will we see him play a regular game before the season out?
Thank you for the phone call. We answered the Rob Ryan question earlier. We all think that unless something really happens in Washington, maybe he'll be gone in the bye week. More than likely, he'll be here to the end of the season. I don't think you see Garrett Grayson unless Drew Brees is injured, right?
Yeah, and even that, you know.
I mean, they signed Matt Flynn this week.
Exactly, but even that, for some reason, Matt Flynn's not ready to be active this week, which I don't know. And Brees would go down. I think that'd be the only scenario you would see Garrett Grayson. But if he's playing at any point the rest of the season, it's not a good sign for the Saints.
Rob Ryan is fired. Well, again, not fired.
Contract not renewed.
Contract not renewed
Right.
after this season I guess, the best. I mean, well, it depends on which way you're looking at it. He won't be back for 2016. I'll just put it to you that way. As far as Garrett Grayson, that means Drew Brees has a broken leg or a broken arm or something, because there's no way. And I would suspect, though, that this week Garrett Grayson is still the backup. They probably deactivate Matt Flynn. He's not ready to go yet. So I think Garrett Grayson, like he was last week, he will be the backup going into this game.
Hal is in Algiers. Hal, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Hal.
Hey, guys. I've got two questions. One's a little mini question at first. On the play where Drew Brees got hurt this past week, I've watched it over and over again, and in slow motion, Zach Strief doesn't even seem to see the guy that comes around his right and winds up hitting Drew Brees. So my first question is, have you all heard anything about what that was all about from Zach Strief's point of view? That it was as if he didn't even see the guy. Zach moved, in further in the line, and there were only 4 guys rushing. It's not like they have to pick and choose. But my main question is the mood of the team, and this is in general, not just the Saints. All of us know what it looks like when people we work with aren't doing a great job, and so some of the Saints are really hustling. You were talking about Ingram, and we know Drew Brees. Some of the Saints are really hustling, trying to do a great job. And other guys, like Brandon Browner, it's like, what is the mood of the team when they know that they can't trust some of the guys on their team?
Thank you for the phone call, Hal. Guys, you both broke the film down. See anything with that play with Strief?
I'm trying to recall. We talk about the one where he busted his lip?
Yeah, busted his lip, yes.
If I recall correctly, later in the game when Arakpo had that big sack, no one looked at Arakpo. That's a protection call that was missed. So that may have actually been on Brees. I'm not 1,000% sure there. But in terms of the mood of the team, and Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, I actually feel like the mood's pretty good inside the locker room right now. You don't really feel like that down. Last year, there were points you could just feel it. It just wasn't there.
Both you guys brought that up last year.
You could just feel, it's a much better scene inside that locker room now. Mood-wise, so I think they're actually handling the adversity better this year. But they're 4-5. They're not going to be jumping from the rafters. So I think overall, it's about what you would expect for a 4-5
Larry,
team.
what can you add on both?
Well, I do think that it was more of a, hey, Drew Brees has got to kind of point that out. And look, Zach Strief gets some heat, and I know he's not a fan favorite, and he could easily not be the right tackle next year. It could be Andres Pete. But a lot of the things, and you brought up the other play where Arakpo came in, and that was on Teron Armstead. Right. And you got to be able to see what's coming, and obviously they did not see that coming. And as far as the mood, I do think it's a different mood. I just think they know that they're not good enough. I just think they know that, and they're still a building team.
Do you think they knew that coming out of training camp?
If they didn't, they're fooling themselves.
Right.
I could tell you, front office wise, they know,
Right.
Yeah,
and knew, and still know.
I've always felt, especially starting the season, there was a huge sense of unknown since 2006, and I really sense it from the coaching staff and the front office. Players are going to play. I mean, they're going to line up, they're going to play,
Sure.
and they're going to play confident. But did they think, this is our year? Absolutely not. But I've always sensed, especially with the way Sean Payton was coaching the first few games, that they were not completely confident in this group. And they've gotten more confident, and you saw the win streak, but I think they are what they are right now, which is around a 500 team.
I don't think it's for a lack of effort.
Exactly.
I really think that if it was, I'd have no problem. I would have written it 15 times by now. I don't think it's for a lack of effort. I think they are rebuilding. They cannot admit that publicly, but they are rebuilding, and this is the growing pains.
Lisa, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Lisa.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
I'd like your opinion on something. This scenario, if Brees is with Belichick and Brady's with Peyton, who do you think would be more successful?
Thank you for the phone call.
I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you.
Well, the call is on
Well,
a roll
that's
tonight.
you got
Boy,
it.
that's a good one.
That's a good one. Go ahead.
It's a good one.
It's funny because I don't think Brees would have been Brees without Peyton, because I felt like that was a perfect marriage. I don't know that Belichick is the quarterback guru that Peyton is, so that's a tough one. I think both will have success, right? Wash. I don't know.
I still think Brady's better.
Right.
Yeah.
I still think Brady's better.
So if Brady came here, he would have had maybe just as good a success?
I think Brady would have had better success than Brees,
Than Brees?
all statistically,
Right.
and yet win and loss,
Maybe around the same.
maybe he'd have a little better because I think Brady's better than Brees, and yet I still think both would be Hall of Fame quarterbacks. But that is a good question.
That is a great question. Brian is in Metairie. Hey, Brian, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports.
Hey, hi, gentlemen. How y'all doing tonight?
Doing great, Brian.
All right. All I got to say is two little things. And somebody talked earlier about fool's gold. And that's all this whole season is defensively for the Saints. They can win out, it's fool's gold. They're bad. No other way. You don't have to write a long column. The man with the top sticky union. Put on top of your column, bad, bad, bad. Because it is.
That'll be the lead to my next column. I love it. Bad, bad, bad. I'm in.
I mean, they're just terrible. They're just terrible. They gotta hold on to the jerseys. They gotta, no pass rush. I've seen more of a pass rush at North football game. It is just pitiful. And I mean, I hate to see people fall for it because it is fool's gold. This team, if they're a 500 team, it would be a miracle to me. I think the offense just can't. It's not the old offense that outscored the other team. And LSU, I don't think we will get into a national. And I love LSU. I believe purple and gold. I don't know what to do about it, but I don't think we will be in a national championship contention till Les Miles goes. He just can't. He can't win. He puts me in the amount of Dale Brown in the years. Dale Brown had nothing but talent, but could never win the big one.
Thank you for the phone call. Certainly appreciate it. Guys, got about 2 minutes left. I'll ask the final question. Leonard Fournette's performance against Alabama, does it hurt his Heisman chances? Does he win the Heisman Trophy? I'm of the opinion he can get right back into this thing with the next 3 games and again, be holding that trophy up in New York. Your thoughts?
I still think he's in the lead. He may not be like way out in front.
Right.
I think it's evened out a little bit more with a guy like Henry or even a Christian McCaffrey or Boykin out of TCU. But there is still a lot of time. That is the one thing that LSU can rebound from in a big way is Leonard Fournette. He is still. I would not surprise me at all if he wins the Heisman.
Look, I think it should go to the best player in college football. If you don't think Leonard Fournette's not the best player in college football, I mean, you're delusional. You're in the cow patch eating shrooms. I mean, I just think he's the best player in college football, and I understand the hype and all this. He should win it, but I agree. Fortunately for him, he's got time to rebound.
Yes.
And I think he will.
No, I think he will as well. Saints, Washington, what do you like?
I'm going Saints just because it's going to be kind of a wacky game, and I know Washington's been pretty good at home. I'm going with the Saints because I think it's just right in their kind of MO to get themselves back up to 500 and kind of keep everybody alert again and go into the bye week. But I'm not overly confident in it.
Should I ask Larry?
Does it matter? Actually, what I pick is going to go the opposite. But
so you're picking?
I'm picking the Saints, so it probably means the Redskins going to lose, but I'm picking Saints 27-24, and it's probably because Forbath misses an extra point. I mean, I'm just going dark side on this.
Well, what a fantastic panel tonight. Larry Holder, Sean Vazan, thanks so much for being with us on Inside New Orleans Sports. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE at 10 p.m. Also on Pelican Sports Television and the New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette markets at 9 p.m. on Friday. You can catch me on the radio, 9:90 a.m. WGSO, 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. weekdays. You can catch us on the TuneIn Radio app and also listen live or download the podcast at ericasher.com. And you can see every single episode of Inside New Orleans Sports at ericasher.com as well. Special thanks to our guests, Larry Holder and Sean Vazan. Also to the WLAE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Philip Williamson, Richard King, Donovan Joseph, Kenny Juno, and my director, William Hill. For Sean Vazan and Larry Holder, my name is Eric Asher. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you right back here next week for Inside New Orleans Sports.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is the first place award winner of the 2015 New Orleans Press Club's Excellence in Journalism Award for the category of Best TV Sports Show.